All right, so Daniel Hall, I'm happy that Daniel's with us. Second year in a row, we had to invite him back because his presentations are always some of the best that we have, and people just give rave reviews. So you definitely want to grab a pen and a pad, listen to everything Daniel has to say because he's going to show you how to get real fast results. That's his amazing brand, real fast results. Daniel Hall is a best-selling author, speaker, publisher, nurse, attorney, and host of the Real Fast Results podcast. All of that, nurse, attorney, all that, publisher, speaker.
That's a lot, isn't it? Like, holy cow.
Jack of all trades. He's also the creator of the highly popular Real Fast brand of training products. He left a law practice 10 years ago to build his publishing business and has never looked back. He's going to show you how to quickly publish high-quality Kindle books using public domain content and be completely within Amazon's terms of service as you're using that public domain. So that's important. So it's not just using the public domain, it's learning how to do it without getting your account shut down. So you definitely want to pay attention if you want to publish an easy source of public domain content without writing it yourself and to do it within the terms of service of Amazon. So I'll let you go ahead and do your thing, and we'll be here answering questions, and look forward to it.
All right, man. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm very, very excited about this particular topic. And the primary reason for that is I've literally made thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars passively with what I'm about to teach you here. So I know that it works, and if you pay very close attention, I believe it can work for you. So let's actually jump in, talk about the opportunity, because essentially using high-quality public domain content, you will and can publish desirable Kindle books fast. And you know, the really cool thing about it is it makes it then possible to create this really nice library, this catalog, if you will, of books that continue to sell for you night and day while you sleep, and without really a whole lot of promotion from you. So that's the huge opportunity here. Now, one of the things that I get when I'm presented with, when I say, hey, I publish public domain books, is, hey, this is not allowed. I mean, you can't do that. And the fact of the matter is that many Kindle publishers, many authors, this is their belief. But that's just, it's just not the case. It's just not, plain not true. As a matter of fact, if we look at Amazon's terms of service, you could actually just look at the very first sentence of their public domain content information, right? And the very first sentence says, selling content that is in the public domain is permissible through our program. So it is allowed. Now, there are caveats and there are certain ways that they want you to do it, but I just want to start off with that foundational principle. And here's the thing. They do have qualifications. They do have some caveats. If you sort of go further into the setup in the terms of service, it goes on to say that you may need to provide proof that whatever it is you're publishing is in fact in the public domain, and that they may refuse, not that they shall or they will, but they may refuse public domain content already on Amazon or available for free on another website. Now, when it says may refuse here, I will just tell you that if they catch it, they will take it off the site. If it's available on their site unchanged somewhere else, okay, somebody else has published it, or if it's available just online for free somewhere, like maybe Gutenberg.org or so forth. And I'm going to tell you how to sort of circumvent this problem. But this is exactly what it says here. In order to provide a better customer buying experience, our policy is not to publish undifferentiated, that's the key word, undifferentiated versions of public domain titles where a free version is available in our store. And when it says in our store, in dealing with Amazon over the years, they really just sort of see that as anywhere on the web. Okay, so it's not just in their store. If a public domain work is available for free elsewhere, anywhere, okay, online, then it needs to be differentiated. Okay, so going back to that undifferentiated work, and we're going to talk about this, and it's important in just a second, because what this really means is for most public domain content available online, you can't just rip it off and publish it. All right, now I do want to note here that if public domain is not freely available online, okay, then you can, for the most part, publish it unchanged. For example, so the first thing you need to understand is not all public domain, not all content that is in the public domain is in fact available online. So for example, you can go to a garage sale or a flea market or a antique store and buy old magazines, probably many of which will be in the public domain that will not be available online. So again, what I'm saying is if you do this and you scan it in, you could actually take that content unchanged without making it different and publishing it. And you know, I should say, for those folks that may be wondering, what the heck am I saying when I say public domain? What I'm really saying is that a public domain content, or public domain, is content that is not subject to copyright, number one. Like for example, the copyright is expired, and that makes it open for everyone in the public to use. That's where the name public domain comes from. It's out in the public. Everyone in the public can use it. And here's the cool thing. They could use it without paying any royalties or asking anyone's permission for it. That's one of the really cool things about public domain content, is that that you can, if you find public domain content, and I'm going to show you how to find it here in this presentation, if you find it, you could basically use it for any reason without asking anyone's permission or paying any royalties on it. It is in the public domain, free for all of us to use, okay? Now, in this course, I want to specifically focus on public domain content that is, in fact, available online, all right? And if it is available online, then it must be different if you're going to publish it to Kindle. And in fact, the terms of service on Amazon actually says this. It says, we consider works to be differentiated when one or more of the following criteria are met. And you see there's three basic line items here: translated, annotated, illustrated, right? And what I'm saying here is that our focus with this training here today is we're going to show you exactly where to source this public domain content and how to know that it is in the public domain and prove it, because remember what I said is they may ask you for proof. I've been asked for proof about one in about every 20 titles. They ask for, hey, show me that this, whatever it is you're publishing, is in the public domain. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then also easy ways to create these different book or these differentiated books. Now, I'm going to assume that you already know how to create Kindle books, okay? But if not, I do have a resource for you. Now, let's jump into where to source public domain content. So make an asterisk in your notes, draw a line, and let's jump into this part of the training. First off, I wanted to just kind of let you know how much public domain content is available. And there are literally millions and millions of books currently digitized and available to download right now. Okay, when you jump off the Bestseller Summit here, you could actually go and start getting this content in just about every and any niche you can think of. I show you here, under where it says currently digitized, that there are over 5,692,731 volumes available at this one site I'm going to tell you about. It's called HafiTrust.org. And you know, this is, again, just a tiny fraction of what is available in the public domain. That's really my main point. And I wanted to kind of take you through and show you some of these websites where you can grab public domain content and make it different. All right. Well, first off, let's talk about where you can grab some of this content. I love Gutenberg.org. Okay, and I have the URL here for you. Just Gutenberg, like the guy that invented the printing press. Gutenberg.org. And here's the really cool thing. You can go over to Gutenberg.org and it actually starts scrolling through, or type in the subject matter or the topic that you want to research up at the top there where it says search book catalog, and it will bring back some results. Now, I was just kind of clowning, and I think I typed in there sex book or something like that, and the Kama Sutra, which, by the way, is it's still very, very, very popular. Lots of copies being sold of this book. Guess what? It is in the public domain. And how do I know that? Well, first off, if you go to Gutenberg and type in sex books or Kama Sutra, you will, if you kind of follow the numbers on the graphic on the right side of your screen, the number one is where you can actually go download an HTML version, lots of other versions, but I suggest you download an HTML version of the book. Then the other thing, and I suggest you do this as well, under the number 2 tab where it says BibRec or Bibliography Record, BibRec, you see down at the very bottom, that very last line item where it says copyright status. You see where it says public domain in the USA? That tells you that this book is in the public domain, and Project Gutenberg has done the research to verify that and publicize it. So when you have that question from Amazon, hey, prove that this book is in the public domain, you just send them a link to this same page. That's it. That does it. They're like, okay, thank you, and on to the next thing. All right, so let me show you a couple other places that I absolutely love to get public domain content. Here's another one, the GPO, or the Government Printing Office, okay? Lots of really great stuff here. By the way, this you should absolutely asterisk in your notes as well, because get this, U.S. federal government public domain content, almost all of it, 99.99% of it, automatically goes into the public domain. So I know some of you were saying, well, Daniel, public domain content, it's old, it's outdated, all of that stuff. And I'm here to tell you that, yes, that may be true for some things, but you can actually go to a site like gpo.gov, and you are going to get some of the most current information on different subject matters here at this site. And again, everything, or almost everything, that the U.S. federal government puts out, and they are the largest creator of content in the world, okay, their stuff is not even eligible for copyright. Why? Because we, the taxpayers, paid to have it created. It automatically goes into the public domain. Now, one important point about this thing about federal government content being in the public domain only applies to the U.S. federal government. Only applies to the U.S. feds, okay? Not your state, in other words, not your county, not your municipality. If any other content created by any other source but the federal government is going to be copyrightable, is not in the public domain. So I just want you to understand that really, really well, because that could trip some people up. Now, another thing that you will find, again, because if you're pulling content from a site like gpo.gov, you're going to want to, again, prove that it's in the public domain. So you're going to want to look for, like, this little graphic that I actually took from gpo.gov that says this. There's a statement like this on almost every U.S. federal government website that says something to the effect, unless specifically stated otherwise, all information on the U.S. Government Publishing Office website is in the public domain, and see what it says, may be reproduced, published, or otherwise used without GPO's permission. Okay? So again, this is, I hope this is like blowing your mind. If you haven't heard this before, this is like really, really good stuff. Again, because there is so much available out there on all kinds of topics. I mean, I'm talking about from everything from theft identity to losing weight to smoking cessation and all kinds of peer-reviewed, really high-level, credentialed people creating this stuff. So you know that the content is good. You know, it's well written. I mean, it's really a treasure trove that I'm presenting here to you, and I hope you're getting that. All right. And as you can see here, U.S. government content is automatically into the public domain. And again, that's only U.S. federal government, that level, nothing below it. Okay. Now, another thing that I wanted to show you here is, and I mentioned this a little earlier, I love this site called HathiTrust.org. And at HathiTrust.org, essentially, it's a compendium, really. It's a bunch of higher-level public and private institutions of higher learning that got together and they said, hey, we're going to take and digitize our entire library and then share it with one another. Okay? That's what HathiTrust.org is. And the really cool thing about that is that even though we're not, you and I are not members, most likely, of the Hathi Trust, or go to or affiliated with some institution of higher learning that is, we still can use HathiTrust.org. You just go to this site and, again, type in your topic, or whatever you want to publish on, and hit search, and it's going to give you, if you take that, you see it right up above here where it says full text, right? If it gives you a full text return, you could be assured, if that's the case, that document is in the public domain. How do I know that? Because if it wasn't in the public domain, they would not be able to make the full text available to you legally, okay? That's how you know. Now, let's say that you get to a book that you want to use. For example, I use this book with one of my Kindle publications, Ice Cream and Other Frozen Desserts. And I was like, okay, well, I need to know that this book was in the public domain. Well, on the side of the record, it says, rights, public domain, Google digitized. It tells you that it is in the public domain. So if Amazon asked, hey, is this content coming from the public domain? Yes, and here's my proof. You give them a link to the site, okay? Now, here's another one that will blow your mind. Many comics are in the public domain, okay? Here's another example, digitalcomicmuseum.org. And not only are the stories in the public domain, but so are the pictures, the images in these comics, which you could actually take, repurpose, change out the words in a text, and come up with a brand new picture book suitable for Kindle or whatever. Okay, it just, you know, when I get so excited about this because I see so much opportunity here that gets missed by many Kindle publishers. That's why I'm sort of you know, banging the gong on this. It's really, really awesome stuff. Now, here's the other thing. You're gonna want to say, hey, this is, you know, if again somebody questions you, you get the link for, again, at Digital Comic Museum. Here's the language that you're looking for. We are the best site for downloading free public domain golden age content, and it says all files have been researched by our staff and users to make sure they are copyright free and in the public domain. Okay, so there you have it, right? That's the language that we're looking for, right? All right, now. Again, if you're asked for proof, you want to send Amazon a link to wherever you downloaded the content. Sometimes that link will indicate the public domain status. Sometimes not. If not, send them a second link to where it says it, right? And I just go back. If I'm looking at a site that it's on a public domain site, and I will just sometimes go back to the root of the URL to find that copyright status message. All right. Okay, so that's how you do it. Now let's talk about how you can quickly differentiate your public domain book once you've got it done, right? Or once you've got it chosen. Because remember, that's what Amazon requires. That once you have this thing that's in the public domain, you have to make it different. All right, so now, again, make a line in your notes. We're going to talk about making it different. First off, again, translated, annotated, illustrated. So in this module, I'm going to actually talk about what these things mean. Let's first talk about translated, okay? Because for most of us, this is going to be the most difficult thing to do. So this is like taking a work that may be in English and translating it into French or Swahili or Tagalog or some other language, right? And if you don't know that other language, obviously it's going to be more difficult to have it translated unless you're paid to have it done. But again, this is, you can actually have, some other ideas that I kind of want to present here for you, even if you don't know another language. For example, this book, the Klingon Hamlet. Okay, basically they took Hamlet, again in the public domain, and they translated that into Klingon. Okay. Or what about this one? You're going to love this one. If you like that one, you're going to love this one. Chaucer's Canterbury Tales translated into Pig Latin. Okay, so you can do stuff like this, all right, if you wanted to do the translated version of it, all right? All right, so let's talk about the next part, which is a little easier. This is the annotated version. Here, you want to actually get annotations that, and again, I'm taking this language directly from their terms of service. Annotated means it contains annotations of unique. That's really important. Unique, handcrafted, additional content, including study guides, literary critiques, detailed biographies, or detailed historical context. Okay, so if you add, say, you have something that that makes sense that you want to publish, well, one of the things you could do is a study guide, okay, for the book. You could add it to the book. So make a quick outline of the content, then remove the keywords and simply replace them with blanks, right? And then create and include an answer key for it. That makes it different. You could then publish that book. You're adding value to it, right? Super important. And then literary critiques, detailed biographies, or detailed historical contents. Obviously, you could write this and add value to it yourself, but consider interviewing and transcribing an interview with an expert and including that. That would make it annotated, and that works as well. Here's some examples of what I do with my Real Fast Results podcast. We take those and we actually make them into books, right? Just again, by translating what an expert has, transcribing what an expert has said. Now, one of the things that I often get here is, well, Daniel, how much additional content when it comes to annotating do you need to add? And I always say, hey, if you can add 2 or 3 pages of additional content or add some footnotes or endnotes to it, that is enough, okay? Now, here's the easiest. I actually saved the best for last, okay? Because the last line item, remember, it could be translated, annotated, or illustrated. You could add illustrations, and according to Amazon's terms of service, that means including 10 or more unique illustrations relevant to the book, okay? So here's the thing I want you to understand, that the images themselves that you add to the book can themselves be in the public domain. I mean, it's crazy. It's not like you have to have them, created specifically for this project. You could pull relevant examples down, and let me show you some examples. Here's one right here. So the King James version of the Bible is, in fact, in the public domain. But guess what? There are lots of sites out there that specialize in biblical images that, again, and those images are in the public domain. So you could take and publish a version of the Bible, which, by the way, is something you should consider doing because lots and lots of folks read this. I mean, obviously read it, but they buy it, and it's still one of the best-selling books in the world. Okay, it's probably the best-selling book in the world. So again, you could add these really cool illustrations that go along with this story just like this author did. And notice how many reviews. I mean, you can tell if 176 customers have reviewed this, that many, probably thousands of people bought this book. Okay, it's well worth thinking about. All right. So you might be asking, and if you haven't, if you don't have a way to get a recording of this particular training, get your phone out and take a picture of this page that I have up there right now. Because this is where I go for most of the images that I use in my books. So all of the images on, or almost all, again, you need to check, obviously, but almost all of the images available on every one of these sites is in the public domain. And if you're looking for related images to add and make your Kindle book different, here you go. You can grab those images for free. Okay, for free. I mean, it's like beyond awesomeness. All right. Now, a couple things I want you to keep in mind here. Books that meet this criteria must again include translated, annotated, or illustrated in the title field. So you kind of going back here. So when you're actually publishing this to Kindle, you see how they have illustrated in the title field, Holy Bible, the Authorized King James Version, Special Illustrated Anniversary Edition. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's what they're talking about here in the terms of service. You need to say this in the title. So again, it makes it different. Makes it different. All right. Now, let's talk about royalties. Now, and this is the other thing about PD stuff that's really important. First off, if you are choosing your content as public domain, so when you go to Kindle Direct Publishing and you choose publishing rights, it actually gives you two choices. First choice is it's in the public domain. That's actually a radio button within KDP. The second choice is you own the rights. But if you choose PD, if you choose the public domain stuff, you are only eligible for a 35% royalty, not the 70% royalty, okay? However, there is a way for you to qualify for the 70% royalty and still use public domain content, and that's by using PD or derivative works. And I want to briefly talk about this. First off, what is a derivative work? Well, a derivative work is based, again, what we're doing, we've turned the corner here from public domain, and now we're talking about derivative works, and we're doing this because derivative works are eligible for the 70% royalty, not the 35% royalty. That's the reason why we're doing this, okay? So let's talk about derivative works. A derivative work is based on or derived from one or more already existing works. Basically, it's a new version of the work. Derivative works, in fact, include things like translations, musical arrangements, dramatizations, fictionalizations, art reproductions, condensations, etc. Okay? Now, the nuance here for you all that I want you to get is your derivative work is derived from public domain content, okay? Not something that's currently copyrighted. So typically, you're adding much more to the original content in the mix. That's what you're doing. And here are some examples. I think you'll be familiar with a lot of the Disney stuff. Most of Disney has, Disney has used the public domain to make literally a fortune, like a fortune's fortune. And here's another example on the right, Quirk Classics. For example, I love this one, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. Okay, Sense, Sensibility, and Sea Monsters. Android Karenina. Okay, these are derivative works. They contain the essence of the underlying public domain work, but they take off on it. They add value to it, and that's really the important thing I want you to understand here, because you want to take and add your own insights, your own value, your own spin, or update it. Here's some examples for you. Now, I love Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I mean, I start reading that book, and the first couple pages, I'm basically transformed. I'm transported into Alice's world, and I stop myself because it kind of puts me in like in a little bit of a trance, and I stop myself and I think, what has Lewis Carroll done here, right? What writing style has he used to put me into this sort of trance? So I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to do copywriting secrets used by Lewis Carroll in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland? That, my friends, would be a derivative work, okay? Again, same thing with practice and science of drawing, then you add in the computer age, because that practice and science of drawing is a public domain work. You just add in the computer age. So you're putting in, again, you're updating it. This makes it derivative, and therefore you're adding your own value, your own spin, your own expertise. You develop and apply, or you can develop and apply the expertise of others, such as in anthologies. Okay. Now here's the rub, and here's really what's important if you want to do this. Anything that you add to the mix, all right, is eligible for copyright protection. Okay. Unlike public domain content, which once it goes in the public domain doesn't come back out, okay? Whatever you add to public domain content to make a derivative work does become your property. It becomes copyrightable, and because of this, it's eligible for that 70% royalty, okay? And again, in order to get the 70% royalty, you must in fact use must price your book between $2.99 and $9.99, and that again, that's really the major crux of what I wanted to teach you here today. I mean, I use this stuff every week. I'm almost all the time publishing stuff like this, so I love it, and I would really encourage you, if this is something that's of interest to you, to get into it, to dip a toe and actually start doing this. And I want to ask you all a question. Based on what I have said here so far, does it make you want to learn more about profiting from public domain content? Go to your questions box right now and just type in heck yes, so that I know that you and I are kind of riding along in the same boat here. Cool. We got Tamila and Jillian and Doreen and Paul and Robert and Sally and so many other, I can't, scrolling so fast. Okay, cool. So let me chat with you about one of the things that I've put together in this subject called the Public Domain Super PAC. And essentially, this is where I've kind of put everything that I've just said and much, much more into one central and very affordable product training. And essentially, this is what I use myself to take public domain content and translate it into, or manifest money in my bank account. And that's why I put this together, because I think more people should be doing this. And by the way, if all of us on this webinar right now were to devote the rest of our lives to publishing public domain content and using this approach that I've sort of laid out for you here, in 1,000 years, all of us wouldn't even scratch the surface of what's available. Okay, so I don't want you to think, oh, Daniel, it's all been done before, it's all been used. No, that's not true. And not only that, new public domain stuff is coming into the public domain daily. Daily, new stuff comes in. Okay? All right. So the first thing I wanted to tell you about that's in the Public Domain Super PAC is creating cookbooks. Okay? This is basically a freestanding course that I have called Creating Cookbooks Fast Using Public Domain Content. And just to let you know, and I know that because I've talked to Ron about this, I mean, Ron has kind of done a variation with this, not using public domain, a slightly different approach, but basically Ron has built an entire empire, a fortune from cookbooks. I mean, let's face it. And this gives you an idea of actually the steps of using public domain content to do that. And just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here, and just how popular cookbooks can be, we actually ran this. This is not my book. I just want to make sure you understand that. But here's an example of a cookbook, 50 Shades of Chicken. Okay, and we ran this in our I think it's called Amazon Jungle deal, and they tell us how much of the estimated monthly revenue is from just one book, for just a singular book. This one came up with $17,871 monthly. Okay, so we're not talking chicken scratch here, no pun intended, right? Huge market for that sort of thing. In addition to the cookbook training, this package also provides the create and sell courses fast using public domain content. And again, I'm doing this all the time with public domain content, and because it's just it's literally everywhere, and you add your own value to it. You could actually put it up on sites like Udemy and Amazon Video Direct, your own website, Skillshare, other places. Okay, if again you're so predisposed. But again, this is a whole freestanding training that you're going to get with that. And then also how to go about creating hot selling info products fast using Google Hangouts on Air. This, by the way, is a $67 value, and I use this again all the time to create products for free. I don't have to worry about Camtasia Studio or uploading or anything like that. I just use Google Hangouts, and I often make my products just using that. And again, I show you how to go about doing that so that you can upload them to places like Udemy and Skillshare and Amazon Video Direct or your own website. Also, you're going to love this one. This is again an entirely different training. I show you how to tell if content is in fact in the public domain. We go into a deeper dive, but essentially you get that as part of the training as well, so that you know that whatever it is you're using, you can in fact use. Then this is the other one I think you'll really love. It's 101 places to find public domain content. I gave you maybe 3 or 4 in today's presentation, but this is some of my best, most closely held secrets of where I go to get public domain content, a little bit off the beaten track, to be sure, some of them, and I think that you're going to really love that as well. And then, of course, search tips to find public domain content. This is another thing that's another really useful skill to have to actually go about finding public domain content in your subject matter, whatever it is you want to write on, okay? That's also very obviously crucial, that it marches in lockstep with whatever it is you're doing in your overall business, right? Now, you can get your copy here today on the Bestsellers Summit for only $37. I have this at $47. I just lowered it to $37. I hope that's okay, Alice and Ron. They don't even know that. But we're going to run this through the end of, I think, Sunday. So if this is something that you want, head on over to Bestsellers with 2 S's, summit.com/Daniel. That link is in your chat, or if it's not, I will get it in there, so that you can just click on it from there, or if you're watching on a rebroadcast, the link is probably directly below where you are now watching. So, all right, that's my presentation for today. Any questions?
That was great. And how dare you give them a better price? Come on.
No.
Thank you so much. Very kind.
I knew you'd take me to task on that, but I don't care. I want folks to get the best value possible.
$37. Listen, everybody should grab that, man. This is a no-brainer. This system, Daniel has a knack for doing the stuff and also a knack for teaching it. And he has like hundreds of testimonials of students who have done well with his stuff. So I would definitely, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, for real. Get that $37, man. It's a good deal.
Yeah, and Ray's asking, what is the offer? Just the one book? No, 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 no. You actually get like 3, 4, 5. I think it's like 4 different freestanding courses. I'll run through them again really quick here. Right here, freestanding course number 1, creating cookbooks fast using public domain content. That's a freestanding, wholly separate course that you will get. Again, how to create and sell courses using public domain content. And this one using Google Hangouts. Again, these are 4 or 5 or 6 modules each on how to, again, use Google Hangouts to create public domain or public domain based courses. And then here's another. I think this is a PDF. This could be an additional course. I can't remember how to tell if the content is in the public domain. I think it's a 2 or 3 module series on how to do that. This is a PDF. That I believe is also a PDF, and there's your package. Okay. So yeah, you want to head on over there right now if you're predisposed if you love this stuff as much as I do, or you could see yourself using it. And by the way, if you're an author, okay, or a writer, or you're trying to be an information product creator, I've just basically solved all of your content needs, okay, in this last 45 minutes that we've been together. And to actually use it, put it in play, hey, pony up to $37. I mean, let's face it, that's not even a tank of gas. bestsellerssummit.com/Daniel. Okay, other questions?
All right. I think I looked at a few earlier. EH wants to know, do you happen to know, like, if other English-speaking governments have their kind of public domain site, Canada, Australia, UK?
No. I'm only an expert in the U.S.
Yeah.
However, I can say that different countries, you could do some independent research. I know some other countries are always having new public domain content come into the public domain yearly. As a matter of fact, I believe January 1st is Public Domain Day in most of the rest of the world. So I know for a fact that like there's a lot of new stuff that comes in the UK, in Australia, but different jurisdictions obviously have different laws.
Right.
And I'm going to refer you to their laws. But I will say this, and I'm very comfortable with saying this. 2 things. Number 1, every English-speaking jurisdiction that I know of has public domain content, number 1. And number 2, if you are publishing, even if you're not a U.S. citizen, but if you are publishing public domain content on Amazon or Amazon's Kindle, you're good to go with that as well. All right, because it's all U.S. Based. The payment is processed through Amazon here in the U.S., so you're good to go with that. All right. So the place you want to go is bestsellersummit.com/Daniel. That link is in your chat. Head on over there right now. Yes. What other question you have for me?
Oh, I was just going to also say, I believe, and I haven't looked at it, but there is a Gutenberg.ca for Canada, but I don't know exactly what's there, but that might be of interest for someone to have a peek if that is of interest to them. I don't know anything. I don't know what's there. Just throwing that out there. And I think you may have answered this, but just maybe for a point of clarification for, I think this was Erwin's question. If they do a book and they take 1 chapter of a public domain book and then they add 6 of their own chapters, is that still public domain?
Ask the question one more time.
If they take a public domain book and they use 1 chapter to create a new book, but then they do 6 chapters of it that's their own, is that still a public domain work?
No. I mean, it's public domain derived, therefore it is a derivative work.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Viva asked a great question, and I'm so glad that Viva asked this. And she says, I don't know if you're a man or woman. Viva, I would assume you're a female. But Viva says, as a former academic contributing to the public domain, I feel a bit obliged to acknowledge thanks to all the work gone into the content. would you ever say something in preface or intro if it doesn't feel a bit immoral, or does that lead to problems? My family could benefit since they are translators. So here's the thing. Great question. The rule of thumb is this, Viva. Give credit where credit is due. Okay? So where it's legal to completely rip something off and say it's yours, I don't think that's ethical or moral, and I don't think you should do that. Okay? I think that you should always attribute and cite and reference wherever the underlying work comes from. Okay? By the way, this actually can help you, okay, more than you might even think about. I'll give you an example. Let's say, going back to Lewis Carroll, and I did my book on copywriting secrets of Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. My name is much, much, much less searched than Lewis Carroll. Okay, it just is. I'm not famous at all. I mean, Lewis Carroll is, right? So it actually even helps you to add these folks as authors on the work for that reason. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's actually a good, in many cases, a good business thing to do. So I hope that that's responsive to your question. Any other questions? What do we got?
There's another one too. Michael was asking about spinning public domain content. Will Amazon accept that?
So, Michael, I would not do that. I mean, you could try it, but think about this. What you put out into the world, okay, you get back in one way or another, okay, and sometimes it doesn't come back in a nice way. So if you add value to the world, if you add value to whatever it is you're putting out there, then you know you're going to reap the rewards of that, reap the benefits of that. And you know, other people may differ with me on this opinion, but I don't think spinning adds value to the content. I think it just makes it all wonky, and I could be wrong. I mean, as I say, you know, I allow people to have different viewpoints than my own, but that is my viewpoint. So I personally wouldn't do it or recommend it.
And maybe to explain, some people might be wondering, spinning is like there's software that will kind of reword everything for you. But sometimes it's not. The way it's reworded is not very natural. It's not always. You know, it doesn't. It's like using an automated translator, right? Where everything's done literally, and then any like sort of different meanings in the language are not picked up, so it can often produce a piece of content that doesn't quite make sense.
Exactly.
So I think it's pretty. I think it's kind of.
No such thing as a perfect spinner, so it's going to seem odd somewhere along the line in the.
I just don't think it adds value. Your job as an author, as a publisher, is to add value to whatever it is you're doing in business. Otherwise, you will ultimately fail, in my humble opinion.
Agree.
Here's a question. My grandfather wrote several well-known autobiographies in 1940 to 1950. Would I be able to republish that, adding 4 photos of him?
If it's in the public domain.
Yes, you'll have to determine that.
Based on the information that you just gave me, I cannot say whether it's in the public domain or not. So, I don't know. Yeah, or obviously, if you have the rights to it, I would say that unless it was committed to the public domain, it could or could not be in the. It's not necessarily in the public domain. So that I'd have to, you'd have to run down.
And who would own it from? Yeah, like maybe someone else in your family has, if there is copyright, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not in the public domain, somebody owns the copyright. Maybe his estate, maybe his heirs. I don't know.
Yeah. So Nathan asks a question that I think it moves us out of Kindle. So I don't know if it's.
That's
right,
cool. We could move out of Kindle.
He's asking if you create a derivative work, can you turn around and sell PLR rights to that new product?
Okay.
So you're using public
So,
domain,
yeah, let's
and
unpack that.
you're
The
changing
short
it
answer
up.
is yes. Short answer is yes, you can. And the reason being is that, number one, if it's public domain derived, you can do anything with public domain content without asking for permission and without paying royalties. And if you own the rights to the rest of the content, the rest of the derivative content, then you're free to alienate those rights or sell those rights or do whatever you wish with those rights because you own them. So yes is the short answer.
Mm-hmm. And
You're
Teresa,
welcome, Nathan.
maybe one more question here. I think Terry Carleen asked this maybe earlier too. She's asking, did you have the resource about making Kindle books? You mentioned it earlier. Do you have did you have a resource
yes,
guide?
I will make sure to get that into the members area. I think.
Okay.
Let's see, where is that? Yeah. I'll get that into the members area or somehow get that to you all so that you can put it up on the site. So one of the reasons is between the time I actually wrote these slides and now, we were hacked and all our sites went down. So the place I was going to send you is not currently available. So when we get it back up and operational, I'll make sure that we get that over to folks, because yes, we do have that.
That sounds great. So maybe we will wrap up now. You guys make sure you go grab that awesome offer from Daniel at bestsellerssummit.com/Daniel. Amazing value there, and I mean, if you're thinking of using public domain to create your books, it's certainly a resource to have with you. And we're going to give away, Daniel,